He wasn't supposed to see it. Not like this. One moment, everything in his life felt perfectly in place. And the next, it was unraveling right in front of him. The woman who had given him love, dignity, and a sense of belonging stood there, reduced, disrespected, and treated like she didn't matter. And the one responsible? Someone who knew exactly who she was, and chose to ignore it. In that instant, silence said more than words ever could. Because this wasn't just cruelty, it was something deeper, something uglier, something that had been hiding in plain sight all along. But the real question is, how long had this been happening behind his back? It looked like a perfect life from the outside. Success, respect, and a home that seemed built on love. He had worked hard for everything he had become. Man who rose from nothing to something people admired. But behind all that success was one person who mattered more than anyone else. The woman who raised him, protected him, and stood by him when the world turned its back on him. She wasn't just part of his life. She was the reason he had one. Bringing her into his home felt like the right thing to do. A way to give back, to surround her with the comfort and dignity she deserved. And at first everything seemed fine. Smiles were exchanged, routine settled, and nothing appeared out of place. But sometimes silence hides more than peace. There were small moments, easy to miss, easier to ignore. A look that lingered too long, a tone that felt slightly off. Nothing loud enough to question, yet just enough to feel wrong. And while he believed his home was a safe place for her, something had already begun to change. Quietly, slowly, and without him even realizing it. At first it was easy to dismiss, a slight change in tone, a pause before responding. Small things that didn't seem serious enough to question. She never complained, never raised her voice. But something in her eyes had changed, a quiet hesitation that hadn't been there before. It started with the little things, meals served later than everyone else, conversations that stopped the moment she entered the room, doors that were once open now gently closed. She began to move through the house more carefully, as if trying not to be noticed. In a place that was supposed to be her home. Then it got worse. There were moments when she was spoken to differently, sharper, colder. Instructions instead of conversations. Respect replaced with something that felt uncomfortably close to control. She would nod, stay silent, and carry on, as if protecting something. Or someone. And every time, she made sure he never saw it. But silence has a way of building pressure. One afternoon, a neighbor noticed her outside, standing alone for far too long. Not relaxing, not enjoying the day, just waiting, watching the door like she wasn't sure if she should go back in. When asked if everything was okay, she forced a smile. One that didn't reach her eyes, and quietly said she was fine. But it didn't feel like the truth. Inside the house, the atmosphere had shifted completely. The warmth was gone, replaced by something tense and unspoken. It wasn't loud. There were no obvious arguments. Just a steady pattern of behavior that slowly stripped away her dignity, piece by piece. And still, he knew nothing. Every time he called, everything sounded normal. Every visit, everything looked just right. She played her part perfectly, hiding every crack beneath a calm, reassuring presence. Maybe she didn't want to worry him. Or maybe she believed enduring it was easier than breaking. The illusion he trusted so much. But the truth was getting harder to hide. One evening, something almost slipped. A brief moment, a look, a silence that lasted just a second too long. He noticed it, but brushed it aside. After all, what could really be wrong in his own home? That was the last moment he had to ignore it. Because what he was about to discover wasn't just uncomfortable, it was something far deeper, far more painful, and impossible to unsee. The door opened quietly, but what he saw inside was anything but. Time seemed to freeze. His heart dropped as the scene unfolded in front of him, her, the woman who had raised him, standing there with her head lowered, her hands trembling slightly, and his wife, standing across from her, her voice sharp, cold, and filled with something he had never heard before. It wasn't just anger, it was contempt. Words were being said, low, cutting, deliberate. Not loud enough to draw attention, but heavy enough to break something inside anyone who heard them. The kind of words that didn't just hurt, they dehumanized. And in that moment it became painfully clear. This wasn't new. This wasn't a one-time argument. This had been happening. For how long? Days, weeks, right under his roof, while he trusted everything was fine. His mind raced, trying to process it, trying to make sense of something that didn't fit the life he thought he knew. The woman who gave him everything was being treated like she was nothing. Not family, not respected, just tolerated. And the worst part? She didn't fight back. She just stood there, silent, as if she had already accepted it. That silence hit harder than anything else. In that moment, something inside him snapped, not just anger, but a deep, overwhelming realization. This wasn't just betrayal. This was something far deeper, something rooted in a truth he had refused to see. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. Every second stretched longer than the last, because now he had a choice to make. Walk away and pretend it never happened, or finally face the truth that had been hiding in his own home all along. Nothing in that house felt the same after that moment. Silence no longer meant peace. It meant truth had finally been exposed. He didn't walk away. He couldn't. Not after everything he had just seen. The woman who raised him was no longer just enduring it. She was finally seen. And this time he didn't look past it. He stood between her and the pain she had been silently carrying, making it clear that what happened in that home would never happen again. But some damage doesn't disappear overnight. The trust was broken. The illusion of a perfect life was gone. And for the first time, he had to confront something deeper than betrayal, the reality that racism doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it hides in the very spaces we call safe, quiet, subtle, unnoticed, until it's too late. For her, the scars weren't just from words or actions. They came from being made to feel less than human in a place where she should have felt loved. And even though things changed, even though she was protected now, the memory of that silence would never fully fade. Because this wasn't just one story. It's happening in homes, workplaces, and communities every single day, hidden behind smiles, ignored by comfort and allowed by silence. The question is, how many more people are suffering quietly, waiting for someone to finally see what's right in front of them? And more importantly, when that moment comes, will we choose to look away or stand up and change it?